Wizards. Welcome to episode 20. Yes, that's 20 of the Crypto Wizard podcast. Now, can we just take a second to say that it's been 20 weeks worth of not only Wizard Wednesdays, but Crypto Wizard podcasts as well. And somehow my brain actually cannot comprehend how 20 weeks has gone past of actually pretty much starting the entire Wizard platform development, the Crypto Wizard pages in general, and just the overall inception and incorporation of the overall Wizard family and the Wizard group. I cannot believe in 20 weeks time we have come this far, we have amassed such a huge following, and we have hit this current stage in life so far. So just wanted to throw that out there, guys. 20 weeks is pretty crazy. As you know, there's an episode every single week. We first started off, I believe, with the Wizard Wednesdays, and then we jumped over to the podcast after. That would be why we've already covered the 20th episode of Wizard Wednesdays, whereas the podcast has only hit the 20 today, as it's a Sunday. So, in saying that, what will be covered in this podcast? We first, as usual, will be going over the charts a little bit. I actually made around 4 hours ago a market breakdown, which still hasn't uploaded, and if I refresh this now, it's still not in HD. I don't understand what's going on with YouTube. I've literally refreshed it 30 times as there's 30 views on this video, and it still has not processed to HD. It's only around 19 and a half minutes long. I don't know what's going on with YouTube right now, but fix your technology, YouTube. Maybe we need some blockchain integration in there as well, because I gave a pretty good analysis video, and fortunately the market hasn't moved just yet, but we are looking to actually break out of these regions to the upside. So looking at this overall, and then before we move to our final topic as well, which was a topic as usual, I go on Twitter, I ask you guys what you want, and you guys come back to me with your magical and special requests. One of them was from yours truly, Mr. Crypto Cookies. I'm sure you guys have seen him lingering the depths of crypto Twitter. He's one of our very own, and he is a wizard in his own right as well. He said, you've talked a lot about crypto investing, but what about your strategy with other asset classes and lower risk passive investments? Most of us will want to diversify with the Wizard profits, and the next bull run profit's just around the corner. So, Mr. Crypto Cookies, I will be covering that in the final segment of this podcast as well, after we go over some of the news, the fundamental news as well, which is John McAfee, the man himself. He said the US has no control over Bitcoin and BTC price will surge in a week. So what he's saying is it's under pressure from the USA and its price reflects it, but the US has no real power in controlling cryptocurrency. And in his own words, he's literally said, just watch, a week from today, Bitcoin will continue its meteoric rise. So looking at the BTC chart right now, I do actually agree 100%. I'm a bit more skeptical on XRP right now. I do believe it's going to absolutely blow through the roof, but for the current time being, if we look at the technical analysis, what we are looking at right now is a final potential drop. I'm still a bit cautious that BTC could potentially just dip down towards 9,200 and even dip down into the $8,900 region before absolutely exploding. But what we are seeing right now is a break below around $9,600. We've now retested that region and price is attempting to break through. So what we're inevitably waiting for is a long opportunity of some sorts. Now, many of you would have entered early around the $9,700 region, which was acceptable. It was also given in the Wizard Wednesdays as well, but I did say it wasn't optimal and it wasn't that recommended. I did advise actually waiting a little bit more for a potential pullback, and we have seen that towards the $9,300 region, which was covered. So for those of you that have entered long, that's fine by all means, but I am personally sitting out of this opportunity no matter how good it looks, because I want to wait for a more refined entry, and I do feel the market could be throwing in some form of surprise attack just below the $9,000 region. So I'm not really looking to take any additional risks. All I want to do is just see $9,000 or $9,100 met, and I'm more than happy to enter. But regardless, I do see BTC breaking out of this $9,600 region soon, and that could inevitably lead us towards the $11,600 region and then pushing up to $12,400 region. So this could be the final pullback if this level does sustain. And Mr. McAfee, we do agree with yourself. It is a good point, and it is looking to push through regardless. That's just one of the main things I wanted to cover from that aspect anyway. There's really not much fundamental news in the market right now. But in saying that, for XRP as well, Everything's working perfect, resting on that 30 to 31 cents region where the support floor is and the major weekly trend line. But just below is the 78.6 Fibonacci at 29.5 cents with a huge trend line retest just below, which could actually bring us all the way down to around 29 cents, which is where I really will be going in a little bit harder for those more refined entries should we see it come through. So I am still skeptical of BTC for now, although it looks like it's going to blow through the roof. I will not jump the gun just yet, and I will wait for some form of final pullback, which I do believe could be happening very soon, and then we can catch some incredible opportunities. So overall, long term, we are looking at this market going higher, but there are some short and medium term downside threats that are very possible for the time being. So just take it all right now with a little pinch of salt and just be ready to strike if the price does fall lower. Now, going over to coin market cap, we are looking at a BTC dominance of 64.5%, which is down over 1% from the prior week, as we were dabbling into the 65% region. When you put this into perspective and you see how the likes of altcoins are now moving a little bit separately to the rest, you can understand why Bitcoin today is up 1%, Ethereum's up 1%, and XRP is actually down around 0.16%. So nothing drastic, but there is a bit of an inverse correlation coming through now yet again with XRP and BTC, which is one of our main measurements of an inverse correlation. There's much more of an inverse between BTC and XRP versus the likes of BTC and Ether. So they all tend to move in synchronization, especially Litecoin as well. All three of them are pretty much up 1% on the dot today. So is Bitcoin Cash, Binance Coin barely up, it's pretty much at break even, and even Tether's doing better than XRP and Binance Coin today, and I always like to throw that one in there as well. Bitcoin SV doing significantly worse today, around 3% down. But overall, you are seeing some very similar movements, and even the actual price graphs on CoinMarketCap show an identical mirror between the top three as well. So the significant slump has just been a bit more on XRP, but I do believe this could be gearing up soon for a quick pullback and then a blow through the roof. Now, in saying that as well, the BTC dominance dropping lower, I think it is just showing that as we have finally started pulling lower and the euphoria, remember when we were at $14,000, the dominance was at an incredible high, and it was becoming increasingly threatening for the altcoins, which were not really moving as efficiently as Bitcoin. Now, for many of us, that was quite scary. Many people were saying, is the alt season over? Will the alt season even begin? Will it ever come around? And the truth is, it will always come back around, but we have to realize we have been anticipating this as wizards, or as prior followers of myself from several years ago. You would have known I've been anticipating an altcoin purge to a very large extent anyway. And the more BTC rises, the more you will slowly see these altcoins die out. But in saying that, some of the strongest projects will inevitably explode through the roof and have a parabolic run just like BTC has in due time. This is one of those biggest issues that comes up in the market. People see BTC rising and they're worrying about their altcoin portfolio falling. But guys, it all moves in relevance. Once BTC is moving like this, you have to remember the majority of BTC's movement is being driven by manipulation. Tether USDT, all of these entities and institutions, whoever they may be, are driving Bitcoin's price to significant highs. Now, when you consider they are driving and manipulating BTC's price, that means their sole focus for the time being, or during that specific phase of a rally, is to milk the living shit out of BTC until they can get every single profit out of that specific pair. In particular, the BTC USDT and the BTC USD pairing. Once they have absolutely rinsed that pair dry and they have started sinking it lower, as you are seeing right now, BTC is falling lower slowly but surely, and I do believe very soon this could be extended much further. I still have $8,000 in my sight. I still have $8,400 in my sight. These are all large possibilities for myself, and I'm not willing to rule them out just yet. So take everything slowly, take everything with a pinch of salt, and I do believe even if we push up a bit higher with this current phase, it may not sustain, and this may actually be what gears us up to that significant drop lower. Even now, if we do break through the roof, we're looking at around $9,900 to $10,000, which could be a final attempt to break higher. And if that does fail, then BTC will drastically drop down to that $8,000 region, which is where I really want to be capturing the majority of my buys from. As of now, as good as it's all looking, I am just still a bit wary of that downside risk before trying to go against the current trend. And if we look at the current short/medium term trend, we are now bearish. And if you look from a daily perspective, we were at $14,000 in June on the 26th. It's now the 28th of July. So on a monthly perspective, we have shifted over to a bearish market. And looking at how this thing's moving now, we could just see a quick attempt up to 9,900, 10,000, and then bang, we slam all the way down to the likes of $8,000. So I'm being very cautious, and that's exactly why I'm not willing to enter any trades on BTC just yet, because let's just say this does explode and we do even see XRP go up to 38 cents. This could still gear us to fall lower down to 27 cents and beyond. So it's all about relevance. Any short-term long trades we're catching now can be a gear up for something to move much lower. But in saying that and overall covering the market analysis, I want to answer Mr. Crypto Cookie's question. So putting the crypto investment aside, let's say whether the price goes up or down, we are wizards. We can margin trade, we can capture scalps, intraday movements, intraday movements, swing trades, or long-term hodls. The reason I even provide different analysis strategies, different insights, different intraday calls is so you can be making money from all different aspects of the trading world, and in particular the cryptocurrency world. But the question is, how do you diversify those investments, and how do you put your capital into alternative avenues? And in fact, do you even take all your money out, or do you do other stuff as well? What do you do with that money? So let's give a hypothetical example, because yes, we will be seeing a bull run inevitably at some point again in the near future. And for me personally, I do feel that will be something that will be occurring just before the BTC halving. Many people are saying it may not occur anymore, but I do believe, depending on how this year ends in particular, it could give us a very key ideology on how 2019 will end and how 2020 will begin. So putting that all into perspective, it's nice to see my video has also just landed in HD, so I'll post that as I'm doing this podcast, so you guys have a nice drive of content. It's currently 5:20 p.m. by the way here in the UK, so hopefully you guys have the full time in the world to watch this whilst the podcast is recording as well. So going back to the profits, let's use a hypothetical scenario, and let's just say now the end of the year, BTC ends back up at the yearly highs. It's basically gone all the way back to, let's just say, $14,000, and you have ended up making, no, scrap that. Let's say we get to 2020 and BTC has now found its way magnificently towards $20,000 or even higher towards $50,000. I think $50,000 sounds good. So let's just say it's gone to $50,000 next year. What do you do? What do you do with your money? You as an individual at $50,000 have made, should we say $100,000? That's a quite good number. You have made $100,000. Now, what do you do with your $100,000? The first thing I would do personally is, knowing that cryptocurrency is now becoming a means of what could soon become a cashless society. I do genuinely believe society overall could become cashless. I do believe that is one of the agendas. If you have seen The Great Hack and the Netflix documentary, which I covered earlier on Twitter, if you've seen that and everything else, then you will start to realize that if you're a bit of a tinfoil person like me, or if you do believe in how the economy works and how the economy of scale works, I do believe eventually and inevitably society will become more blockchain based. I believe that is why blockchain was created in the first place by the NSA and the CIA. I do believe it was one of their own projects for mass control of the population, alongside, of course, the US government, the military, blah, blah, blah. I could go through this all day long. When you put this into perspective, so I saw Gary Vee, someone tagged me in a Gary Vee Instagram video earlier, how he was talking about blockchain, saying it's too early, it's too infant, banks are scared of it, this, that, and governments are scared of it. China want to restrict it, Russia wants to restrict it, America wants to restrict it. And whilst that is true in some extent, what I actually do believe is more true is that they want to control it from now and take over, but they do not want to get rid of it. More so, they actually want it. And when you think about this for a second, why would they want it further? When you compare The Great Hack and the whole Cambridge Analytica to Facebook scenario, and I was talking about this today as well with Siri, there's just a report come out from Zero Hedge that Siri listen to you having sex. They listen to you arguing. They listen to drug deals. They overhear everything. Siri overhears everything. Even if it's for 30 seconds, that's more than enough to incriminate someone. Because not only is it recording you, it has your full name, your current geolocation, and of course, if Find My Phone is on and all these other factors, it's also showing your step-by-step movement. So when you think about this for a second, guys, my Xbox, my TV, my laptop, my iMac, my phone, this microphone I'm speaking through now. I have another iMac in the other room. I have another MacBook in the other room. I have another TV in the other room. I have Bose sound systems. I have the Sonos speaker thing, which also has Siri and also has the Alexa. So when you think about this for 1 second, I wouldn't be surprised at this point if the fucking microwave has a speaker that's listening to me as well, or the oven, whilst it's baking the lovely banana bread my girlfriend made today, is probably listening to me at the same time as well, and quite frankly, it's pretty scary. But when you think about this, just for 1 little minute, you have a listening device and a tracking device that's not only connected to the internet, it's listening to you 24/7 from all angles across the room. Now, how does that work? I thought Siri only answers, or Alexa only answers if you call it. But then, how does Siri even know to answer you if it's not listening in the first place? That means Alexa and Siri are listening 24/7. Because for Siri to understand when I say, hey Siri, let's see if my phone answers now. Hey Siri. There you go, you hear that? That is Siri answering right now. So when you put that in perspective, how would the phone even know to pick up on that if the microphone wasn't on anyway? That means the microphone has to be on 24/7. So it is pretty crazy how society already, and when you've watched The Great Hack and you see how all of this data is being mined, they say right now they have around 5,000 data points for each individual alone. That's right now in its current form, and that's what they had even when Cambridge Analytica said they had scrapped all of Facebook's data and they said they were no longer working with Facebook. They were still going for meetings with target-driven ads. Now, Brexit, the Trump elections, all of this stuff, they have been saying that the majority of these elections and stuff were not necessarily fixed, but there was a massive society manipulation going on to some extent. The human race are vulnerable. When I talk about wolves and sheep, the reason people do not achieve their dreams, the reason people are not successful in life is because they are sheep. I literally saw a video yesterday, and I will get to this investment point in a minute, but this is all relevant and it all adds up. When there was a documentary, well not a documentary, but a video on YouTube of a social experiment where this girl comes into a waiting room for a dentist or a doctor's. Now, she has no idea what's going on, but when she's waiting in the waiting room with a lobby full of people, every time a bell goes off, every single person sitting next to her stands up. Now, she has no clue what the fuck is going on. She's confused as anything, and she's looking at them weirdly. But after the third beep or so, or buzz, she starts standing up too. And every few seconds when the buzzer goes off and they stand up, she stands up as well and just follows them blindly without even thinking. And that for me was just such an interesting social experiment, because it just shows how sheepish humanity and the human race actually is. Nobody questions anything. And that's something that crosses my mind sometimes, where I may have dabbled into the odd psychedelic or whatever's happened or whatever I've taken, a hallucinogenic, I'm very big on that stuff as well. And what I've realised is when I'm in that state, I question things more. But it's trickled over to just in general life and everyday life. I question everything. The nature of our reality, the way life works, society, who made us, what made us, why we're here, blah, blah, blah. All of that stuff comes into question. And the biggest problem is society is not able right now to make a voice or make a change or step forward or think for themselves. And we are being manipulated by these entities. Farmville on Facebook, coins. When you likes, just from likes alone, they have over 5,000 data points on each person. That means the time you're liking, what you're liking, how you're liking it, whose pictures are you liking. There is so much data to be mined from your interactions that we have become data. We have become what's most powerful. Now, going back to my original projection before I was even going to say what to do with money, why would crypto be relevant to this? Well, guess what, guys? It's a fully open, transmutable, transparent ledger. Like, the ledger is there. It's open for everyone to see. Now, when I say this every single time, dark web markets, gangs, criminals, all these underground societies, they always get caught and tracked from their Bitcoin payments. Some people try and launder BTC through the dark web or through these weird shuffler things they're called. I think they're called shufflers or whatever they are. They like mix up your BTC. It's almost like a microwave. So All of that stuff goes on, and the government still track you, and that is because everything is on a ledger. You cannot escape from it. There is a way, no matter how you may think it's unrealistic, they will find you, and that's exactly what will be happening in due time. Imagine when every single person's transactionable data, behavior, or anything they do is done on a fully open ledger that the governments can track and trace. Taxes are the biggest example for me of why this would happen. When you are making every single payment, or the majority of the world is transacting on the blockchain, guess what happens? You cannot escape tax anymore. You cannot hide. And a cashless society is the best way to do this. You are basically essentially removing the anonymous side to peer-to-peer, and instead you are doing the peer-to-peer on a fully transparent ledger for the whole world to see. So having a cashless society actually eradicates tax evasion and money laundering, and it also makes every single thing visible on the blockchain. So when you do see that to some extent, whilst world dominance and world control does seem like a very major topic and a very big agenda for the governments and the banks and any other form of elite that controls this world, blockchain technology will drive that forward. But in saying that, it also means blockchain and cryptocurrencies will very likely, or even digital assets of some extent or some form, whether that's a new niche of cryptos that may happen in a few years or a decade, we know that digital assets and tokens will become transactable online on a grand scale at some point in due time. That's basically been sealed in, I don't even know what it would be sealed in, wax, beeswax, whatever you call it. It's basically a given now that this will occur. So it does make sense with at least some of your cryptocurrency holdings to be hedged, well hedged for that manner, and actually holding cryptocurrency even in a small percentage after you've seen a bull run. Because let's be honest, inevitably over time there will not be any bull runs anymore. We will slowly stop seeing that same surge. Once we have hit the halfway point and the actual adoption phase, you cannot expect to continuously see bull runs, because right now we're in a highly illiquid market that has a market cap less than $1 trillion. So of course you're going to be seeing huge gold rushes flying in. But as the space slowly matures and transactions become higher in volume but less volatile and more stable in terms of transacting, and TX fees hopefully lower and reduce themselves over time as the blockchains begin to scale, cryptocurrency will be highly valuable. And if we do end up joining a cashless society, it would make perfect sense to hold, even after a bull run, at least 10 to 20% of your cryptocurrency on the side. Once you've taken out your initial investment, that's the first thing I always say to people. After a bull run, the first thing you should be doing with your diversification capital is taking out your initial investment first. Always take out the initial investment. I don't care how much you've made or whatever you've done. Take out what you've put in. From there, every single volatile cryptocurrency you hold is fluctuating risk-free. Yes, there is a risk that you may lose it all if every single thing went to shits and you lost everything. But guess what? You have not lost your initial investment. You haven't technically lost anything, because the money at the end of the day, the actual money so-called that you're holding, or the profits, is unrealized anyway, and it's not real until it's actually been switched over to USD. So once you've taken out your initial investment, that's down to you what you want to do with it. I personally would use that as the fund capital and the spending capital. That would be your hard work. You were willing to invest that, and you were willing to lose that money. Now you've actually earned it back. You actually deserve to spend and lose that money on, not essentially lose it, but you lose it from your attachment, but you can have a possession for that instead. You could have a holiday or something rewarding. You deserve that. And your initial investment should always be what you go out and there enjoy. Now, let's just say you've taken out, okay, so you put in 20k or 10k and it's turned to 100k. First of all, take out the 10, 20k. That's now yours. Your initial investment's done. You've got a lot of risk-free capital to work with. Now, the first thing I would do, now that you have around 80k left, I would leave in another 20k. That would be your cryptocurrency holdings. You now have 60k to play with. A lot of it is in, well, you've still got a ridiculous amount in cryptocurrency. £20,000 or dollars is still a huge sum of money. That's now in crypto. That's now moving for the future. As time passes, that could become more valuable than you truly believe, and it could even become gold in its own extent as well. Now, something just jumped in my kitchen. I'm sorry. That scared me. I'm not sure what that was, but I'll investigate further later. So, from there, with 60k, what do you do from there? First of all, this all depends on your age. It's all down to relevance of age, your current situation in terms of debts, bills, financial stability. All of that stuff plays a predominant role. So there's no one rule fits all. But one of the biggest things I would do is put some of it into an ISA. 20k a year in the UK right now. I believe it's the same in the US. 20k a year into a tax-free ISA, and I would straight away put that into mutual funds or even a pension fund within an ISA. You should put it into something stable. Don't even put it into, not a lot of it, maybe another 20k. I like to work in bulk sums of round numbers of 10, 20,000. Every single year you could be maxing out that ISA and putting it to work. So now if you have 60k and you've put 20k into an ISA between several different funds, even 2 or 3 is more than suitable. Put one of them into an index tracker, very stable. And again, when it does go up and down, it moves in bearish and bullish cycles. But these cycles are all relevant to overall economies of scale and the global markets and the stock market. So if you're tracking something like the S&P 500, you will see a steady growth over several years. You will see a few years of downside. But overall, the S&P historically, or the FTSE 100, it has proven to have grown miraculously over the long term, and that's the goal. 20k a year, putting that in over 5 years, you've got 100k there alone. Bearing in mind, you've still got 40k to play with on the side. So from there, if you're putting them into investments that are steady and stable, you can then start looking at properties, guys. Again, depending on the area you're in, even a small deposit or even a shared ownership can be considered in that extent as well. But for me personally, if you want to go down the stable route, funds have always been my go-to manner. That's something I'm pretty clued up on. I'm not an expert in that field, but I do know a lot about it because I have been doing ISAs, funds, and all of those things for quite a while now. So I've never really been an individual stock picker, but I've loved funds because it allows a more easier way to let your money work for you on the side without actually having to consistently monitor. I am very well aware that cryptocurrency is a 3 to 5 year hold, and so are stock investments. They can even be longer. You can be 10 years to a decade for mutual funds and stock investments. So putting that all into perspective and looking at how that could work as well, I would actually put the majority of it into funds. It's a very safe way to do so. I've never been a fan of savings accounts because, number one, the interest rate will eventually get eaten up by inflation anyway. And then on top of that, it just doesn't really bring anything. It's just dead money sitting there idle that eventually becomes worthless over time. I'd much rather have that money moving and fluctuating, and from there, I'm a bit more happier knowing that over time, I'm likely to have a bigger return versus it staying in the savings account. But in saying that, you should have a safety fund as well to some extent. Now, when I say a safety fund, I mean 5 to 10,000 for a rainy day. If you have got that kind of money after a huge £100,000 profit, let's just say. Now, it's 5 to 10,000, just a rainy day fund. If you, let's just say your current outgoings or expenses are £1,000 a month or $1,000, and you put away $12,000, you've covered yourself for an entire year. That's 12 months worth of savings. If you want to quit your job, go traveling, explore the world, you know your outgoings are essentially covered risk-free for an entire year. That for me is a phenomenal way to protect yourself. Now, even myself as a very good example, even with the trading profits as a good example, when I left my prior role, I still maintained myself by fortunately saving money, putting it into ISAs, being a bit tax efficient. And the reason I can not only trade and live off a trading income stress-free, because this is a big thing as well. I've managed to live off just having savings to pay bills if I need to in the worst case scenario, because trading will always have that predominant risk. Now, once you have a sufficient capital, you can always put money into a Forex account as well, or a cryptocurrency margin account, and make money that way as well. But I can tell you from now, if you do not have savings to your name and you only have a Forex account or a crypto account, and you are trying to maintain a lifestyle or a living through simply only trading Forex or crypto with a very low account balance, your psychology will be impacted dramatically, and you'll very likely end up blowing that account as you are trading for capital. But if you want to take that plunge and learn to actually trade or do something phenomenal, then why not have a sufficient amount of savings? I have a fairly, I will not say what my outgoings are, but I have a fairly high outgoing on a monthly basis, but I have saved more than enough to sustain myself for at least 2-3 years if I had no other means of income to actually do that. So I could actually go a year or 2 or 3, maybe even 4, to be honest with you, without even needing to truly even have an income. And that is always an essential thing to do once you start making money, to build a safety fund and hedge and protect yourself against anything that could happen in life. If I didn't save money during certain scenarios in my life, I would have been in much worse off predicaments. I would not have been able to make it this far, even, to be honest with you, if I wasn't smart with even putting something aside. So in a nutshell, there are so many different things to do with your money, and again, I want to actually do a visual podcast maybe soon covering this topic, but again, a lot of this is covered in the Wizard platform anyway. But I thought it would be wise to throw in some pointers, some tips, and all of that stuff just to give you a little bit of an insight into what you can do with your money when the time comes. You never know, many of you could have already made a lot of that money from being early investors and you're still stuck in limbo deciding what to do. All I know is, in a nutshell, having a trading account which you can fund instantaneously with your new profits is a great way to get started versus just drip feeding it every single month like a savings account, which is what I used to do. When I never used to have money, I used to treat my Forex account or my crypto account as if it was a savings account. I used to add money into there every month until I had a sufficient amount to trade, and from there I would get going and cracking. So guys, there is so much to do with your money, and the goal is to just be smart. You want to have a nice fine balance of investment still running, you want to have your initial investment out, and then you want to have a nice balance between true diversification, which is an index tracking fund, maybe a biotech fund. I'm a massive fan of biotech and cannabis stocks because they're more volatile, but when they're in a fund format, they can be a little more stagnant and a bit more stable with the occasional infrequent bursts of volatility and surges. There's so much to do with your money, and again, more to come on this soon. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast and the analysis video, which should already be live for yourselves as well. So guys, have a good Sunday. Let's monitor the market. I'll be here all evening for updates to hopefully see a surprise drop in BTC and XRP, and then we can catch a phenomenal long opportunity off this as well.